Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar on creating responsive e-learning with Adapt. Before I begin this webinar, I'd like to get a good idea of your level of experience using Adapt. So I'm just going to put a poll out into the webinar, and if you could answer that so I could get a good idea of your level of experience, that would be great. That's fantastic. So I can see we've got a range of different responses here. Well, most of you are new to Adapt, which is great. This webinar is aimed mostly at beginners, but hopefully those of you who are more experienced may be able to pick up something new as well. For those of you who are new to Adapt, Adapt Authoring Tool is a free and open source authoring tool that will create responsive SCORM output for you to use in Totara. As the name suggests, it will make up content that will adapt to all devices, which will mean it will look great across mobile, tablet, and desktop. I'll take you to one of our courses now in the Totara community. If you haven't seen one of our courses before, this is one of them. This is appraisals. So with our courses, we'll normally start with a couple of demo videos, and we'll maybe introduce the concept of what we're talking about with an adapt piece. So we've got one here, and then a few more demo videos. And we also use Adapt to introduce fictional scenarios, such as this one here, which I'll show you now. So this is a scenario that we've made showing a fictional company. And as you'll see, all of our Adapt pieces they're comprised of a number of components, such as interactive elements. And then we've also got some static elements such as our text and graphics. And the great thing about Adapt is that it will look great no matter what device you view it on. So you can see here, this is what it would look like on a phone. And all the content has just been rearranged so that it's easy to read and it's still interactive. You see as well that all these components are themed to match our Academy branding. And the activity will be marked as complete in Totara once a user reaches the end of the activity. Or sometimes we might have a question at the end that you need to complete, which will then mark the activity as complete then. So in this webinar, I'm going to show you how you can create a new Adapt course, how you can add some components to your course, how you can upload new components and extensions from a plugin library. We'll talk about adding extensions to your course. And then we'll talk about how you can export your course and then upload it into Totara. I'll mention here as well that I'm not going to be covering either the installation of a tool or theming in this webinar. They're both quite complex, and I don't really have time to cover that in the next hour, even if I wanted to. They're quite technical tasks, so I'd recommend that you get a developer to help you with those tasks if you need help with those. So I'll switch to Adapt now. This is Adapt. So when you log into Adapt, this is the screen that you will see. Here you can see a list of all the courses that you have created. If this list is especially long, then you can search for any courses that you've got using this box here. You can also access shared courses on Adapt as well. So if you are working as part of a team, this is great because it allows multiple team members to work on a single course at the same time. This is really helpful, for example, if you're working to a tight deadline, so you can both be in the same course, adding content at the same time. Let's look at adding a new course. I'll click Add a new course in the top left here. I'll give my course a title. I'll just stick with course title as I've got here. You can also choose to display a different title to learners if you want to. And then you can add a description and any tags. These tags will help you search for courses. Like we saw on our dashboard page, if you've got a lot of courses, having tags can help you filter those out if you're searching for them on that page. Then here you can see we've got the option of whether to share this with other users. So if you want people to be able to see your course as well, then you'd set that as true. I'll save this for now and move on to add a content page. Here's to add a page. I just click Add Page, and it's added a page here for me. Here I can edit the settings of a page, so I can give the page a title, some introductory text. I'll leave this again as just page title for now. And then I'll double click into the page so I can start adding my content. Pages in Adapt are made up of 3 parts. You've got articles, blocks, and components. Articles hold blocks and blocks hold components. It's easy to remember as just A, B, C. I'll add a component to this course. And here you can see our list of components that we can add. I'll add an accordion for now. When adding components, I get a choice of whether they will appear either on the left or right, or take the full width of a block. Adding a component on the left or the right allows me to add a second component inside the block, and blocks can contain no more than 2 components. For now, I'll choose to add a full width component, and that's added there. So if I double click on this, I can start editing my accordion component. So I'll give it a title. And then I can add a small amount of body text. And I can then move on to adding my accordion items. So to add an item, I'll click Add. I can then set the title of the accordion. So I'll call this item 1. And I'll add some text. I've also got the option here to add an optional image. When adding an image, I can choose to either add an external image or one from the asset manager in Adapt. In our team, we tend to use the external image and we host our images on a web server. This allows us to organize the images better and means that we can update an image in an activity without having to republish our Adapt project. For now, I'm just going to choose to add an image from our asset manager. If you needed to update or upload an activity here, you can do it in the top left. I'll just add this logo here so you can see what it looks like on the page. So I'll add that. Then I'll add a few more accordion items quickly. So I'll add item 2. Since the image is optional, I won't add one here. And I'll add a third item as well. Finally, I've got the option here. I can decide whether or not this component has to be completed in order to count towards activity completion. So we'll look at this again later on when we're talking about exporting our course to SCORM. But what this is looking at is it will track completion of the course based on which components have been viewed. So I'm going to say that this component is optional for now, which will mean that we don't have to complete this component to complete the course. So I'll save that and I'll show you what that looks like now by previewing the course. So I'll click preview here in the top left. And you can see I start off from this menu page here, which gives me a choice of which page to access. As I've only got one page, I'll show you how we can remove this menu in a moment. When I click through to my page, you can see the accordion that I've added here. And you can see our items with our image. You can see the other items as well. So to remove our menu page, what we need to do is we first need to copy the ID of our page. So to do that, next to our page settings, we can choose to copy the ID to the clipboard. Then if we go into project settings, here under Start Controller, if I enable this and add our ID here, what this does is it's going to force Adapt to jump straight to our page when it opens a project. I'll also disable the menu here and then save that. So now when I preview our project, it's going to jump straight to our content page and bypass the menu. Before I add another component, let me show you a quick look at some of the core components that you can add in Adapt. So when you install Adapt, these are the components that will come pre-installed. So you can see we've got our text component, we've got a graphic. I've just added a plain grey placeholder image here for now. And as I mentioned before, you can add components on the left or the right, as well as centrally. We've got our accordion, like we added. You've also got hot graphic, which is great for labeling diagrams. You've got narrative, that will cycle through text and images. And you've got media component, which can play a short video or audio clip. You've also got a variety of assessment components as well. So here we've got a multiple choice question. We've got graphical multi-choice. So in both of these, you can choose to either allow one option or it can be a pick many option. We've got matching questions. You've got sliders. And you've also got numeric entry questions as well. You might have noticed that some of the components shown in our Academy example are not listed here. This is because as well as the core components, you can also download custom components created by members of the Adapt community. So here we've got our plugin browser. I'll share a link with this here in the chat now. And in the plugin browser, you can download many custom components, extensions, and themes. It's important to note that not all of these resources are compatible with the authoring tool. So I'm going to post a second link now in the chat. This is a spreadsheet created by Helen Maffin from the Adapt community, and it's a really useful resource for finding out which components work well with the authoring tool. So you can see here a list of all the components, and you get a simple yes or no as to whether it will install to the authoring tool and whether it works well as well. After I finish this webinar and posted the recording in the community, I will also share some links with you to plugins that we frequently use in the community. So if you want to install one of these plugins from a browser, simply find one that you like, such as this stack list one. Click through to it and you can download it here. So if you download that as a zip file, then we upload that in Adapt via the plugin management section. So that's in the top left here, and then plugin management. And then we can choose to upload this plugin by simply dragging and dropping it in there. Since I've already installed this plugin myself, I'm not going to upload it here because it's just going to show an error. So instead, I'm going to return to my course. And I'll add the component that I've just added from a plugin browser. So I'll add a new block for the component, add a component, and then I'll find stack list in here. I'll choose to add it as a full width component. So again, I can give the content a title. And a short bit of body text. And I'll then add our items. So I'll just add 3 or 4 items here now. And then I'll save. So if we preview again now, you'll see our accordion title, our accordion component, and then our new stack list component here. So I'll now give you a quick look at the extensions of Adapt. So if I go down here to manage extensions in our left menu, extensions in Adapt can serve many purposes, such as the page level progress extension. What this extension will do is add a progress bar in the top right of your screen, which will fill in as and when you complete components. Another useful extension is Spore, which we'll look at here. Spore is an extension which allows you to export your course as a SCORM package. So I'm going to add this component. To add it, you just click Add. So if I go back to our page, that's been added. So let's assume that I've now finished my course and I want to export my course. First, I need to make sure that this new extension is configured correctly. So to do that, if I go to Configuration Settings here, and then under Extensions, if I click Spore, I can see the extension is enabled, and it's currently tracking based on course completion. If I was using a quiz in my activity, I could instead use the assessment pass as a criteria instead. But for now, I'm going to keep it as course completion. You can also change the reporting language used. That's passed to Totara. So here it's set as completed, but if you want to, you can change this to pass, fail, or incomplete. It's important to make a note of this as well, because this is what you're going to have to select when you upload it in Totara as well, in the SCORM settings. So I'll save this now, and I'll choose to download this course. So you can see that my course is downloaded here as a zip file. So if I now navigate to Totara, so here's a sandbox I'm currently working in. I'll navigate to the course I want to add it in. So let's assume that this is a first aid course I'm going to add it to. Then I'll turn editing on. And I'll scroll down and I'll add a SCORM package. I'll give my activity a name and an optional description. And then I can drag and drop my adapt activity into the file picker. And I'll quickly change the appearance settings. I want this to open in a new window. And then I'll jump down to our activity completion. And I'll make it show as complete when the conditions are that it requires a completed status. So this is what we selected in our SCORM settings. Then I'll save and display this so you can see how it looks. So you can see our two components here. And when we've completed this second component, that should mark the activity as complete on the course page. So you see it's marked as complete now. So that just about brings us to the end of a webinar. I'd like to ask if there's going to be any questions. I can see we've had one question already. Will there be a replay of a webinar? I will be uploading a video of this onto YouTube, and we'll share that in our Totara community. Are there any other questions? Can an adapt module also be set up to be multilingual? That's a good question. So if I go back to adapt, in our extensions here, I believe one of the extensions is a language picker, which lets you select a language for your course. So yes, an adapt course can be multilingual. I've not set one up myself, so I'm not 100% sure on the process of how to do it, but it is possible, yes. Are there any other questions? We had a question on how do you theme and brand your courses. So I'm not going to go too into depth on this, but in the plugin library, if we go back to our plugin library, you can see here that you've got an option to download the Adapt Contrib vanilla theme. And so when we created our own theme for the Totara community, we downloaded this as a basis. And then you can go into the CSS of the file, and you can change your colors, upload your own logo, and change the way it looks there. And then you can zip that all back up and upload your new theme as a plugin. Can you read and write text help with adapt modules? Can you expand on what you mean by this? I'm not 100% sure what you mean. And we've also had the question, is there a revision option for new modules? Okay, so you're asking about accessibility of adapt. Great. So it's not something I'm 100% sure myself. I believe it is accessible. I'll see if I can find a good link for you on that, and I'll share it with you after the webinar, so you can get a better idea of how to make your course more accessible. But I believe it is accessible. Arma, would you be able to expand on what you mean by, is there a revision option for new modules, please? Oh, okay. So you're asking if there's like a review tool to use with Adapt. Yes. So in our team, what we do, we've got like an Excel sheet, and we write down like the name of each component, and then we just allow people to add comments underneath. So we use Google Sheets so that we can all sort of review it at the same time and contribute to it, and then so we can write what the issue is in one column, and in the next column we can explain what we've done with it, and then we can sort of check it off in the third column with like a green box or something like that. But I'm not aware myself of a specific review tool that you can use with Adapt. But yes, so like this course that we've just made now, that was a SCORM activity that we uploaded into Totara. Great. Are there any additional questions? Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. I will be uploading a recording of this webinar onto YouTube. And as I said, I'll also see if I can share some links with you about what sort of extensions we're using in the community, and what plugins that we use as well. So thanks for coming, everyone, and hopefully I'll see you in the community soon.